say my name is Mann, and I'm the president of the Broome, Tioga Central Labor Council. I would like to welcome everyone to the 2023 Workers' Memorial Day service that the AFL-CIO holds every year. And I would just like to speak first about Workers' Memorial Day. A little bit of little talking points about Workers' Memorial Day. On April 28, 1971, OSHA went into effect, promising every worker the fundamental right to a safe job. That law was won in 1970 because of the tireless efforts of the labor movement and allies who drew major attention to work-related deaths, disease, and injuries, organized for safer working conditions, and demanded action from their government. For more than 50 years, unions and our allies have fought hard to make that promise a reality, winning protections in workplaces and federal and state regulations that have made jobs safer and saved lives. But there is much more work to be done moving forward. Each year, hundreds of thousands of workers are killed and millions more suffer injury or illness because of their jobs. Far too many workers die from preventable hazards and become ill from exposure to toxic chemicals, and these chronic exposures are becoming more common. Black and Latino workers for disproportionate exposures to many job safety and health hazards. These workers often work in dangerous industries and experience exploitation and retaliation by their employers. Immigrant workers are particularly vulnerable due to their immigration status, and subcontractors have exploited this, going as far as placing migrant children to work in dangerous conditions on assembly lines and cleaning and meat packing plants. Child labor laws are under attack and being weakened, exploiting children for dangerous work instead of fixing the hazards to make workplaces safer for all workers. The impact of workplace hazards is extensive. Workers and their families pay with their lives and livelihoods. Workplace injuries and illnesses shift costs from employers to workers and can limit working people's opportunities and quality of their of life for decades. But workplace injuries, illness, and deaths are preventable. Unions are fighting for safe jobs for everyone, regardless of race, gender, employment relationship, or background. We fight for strong standards and employer practices to save lives. We educate working people on their rights to keep our most vulnerable from being silenced. We are fighting for an increase in safety agency budgets and resources to expand their enforcement and standard-setting efforts to protect the safety and health of all workers. We are calling for stronger anti-retaliation protections to be put in place for all workers, but especially Black, Latino, and immigrant workers who are disproportionately killed and injured on the job, and especially targeted for speaking up against unsafe working conditions. We must win new protections from workplace violence, heat illness, silica exposure in mining, COVID-19 and healthcare settings, toxic chemicals, and other hazards. This Workers' Memorial Day, we will mourn for the dead and fight for the living. We will remember those who have suffered and died on the job, and those who are struggling with chronic illness from workplace exposures. We will organize and fight for safe jobs now. Thank you. Now, I would like Fred Brooks to come up to speak. Reverend Fred Brooks, give an indication and speaking about Workers' Memorial Day. Thank you, Fred.
Good afternoon. I appreciate being here with you as we highlight the importance of worker safety and health. And remember and honor persons who have been injured or killed in the workplace. We realize anew how close we are to the human pain and loss, and are reminded again that we are bound together as brothers and sisters. Our worker memorial in this place and time, made sacred by God and by our holy concerns for the injured and those who experienced physical death. We express our sorrow and commit anew to the safety of those who work in dangerous places. No one of us, I suspect, is unaffected by a work-related incident and has transformed life in a devastating, painful way. Many of us may recognize the spiritual overtones of the Workers' Memorial observance. Many believe that each person is created with God-given dignity, that each person is precious. When there is injury or unexpected physical death to even one human being, the pain reaches far beyond the workplace to the circle of family and friends, even to the wider community. This afternoon, we demonstrate our compassion for those in need. We advocate for the safety of our sisters and brothers in their places of employment. In these moments, in this place, let us acknowledge God's presence and direct our words to the Holy One. Let us pray together. God of power and grace, our thoughts and hopes reach beyond our mundane concerns. In your presence, our hearts are filled with gratitude. Our minds are filled with memories. We offer our thanks for life and family, for community and nation, for the beauty of your created universe. Gracious God, you have formed the world and its people, and challenged each of us to be creative in our human relationships, in our contacts with all of creation. As we use our heads, hearts, and hands to forge a modern, creative society, we are especially aware of our vulnerability, the fragility of our existence, and the tensions and conflicts evident among peoples and nations. We gather in this place, O God, to acknowledge that we identify with those injured in their workplaces. We mourn with the families of those killed while working. But gracious one, we know that our mourning is hollow unless we demonstrate a deep personal concern for our family, friends, and co-workers. Awaken and renew our passion for justice, for those workers who come in contact with dangerous chemicals, fast-moving machines, and excessive unsafe hours of labor. Increase our compassion for all who labor. Grant us wisdom and hope as we work for the health and safety of all. In these moments, refresh and renew us with your healing grace. Inspire us to live and work with great purpose and enriching hope in these trying times. Amid the confusion and uncaring voices of our day, we appeal for strength to endure, to overcome those voices and powers which seeks to tear apart the human bonds. Empower us to move our communities and our nation to a better place. May we work with you, O God, to heal our broken world and to enrich the lives of all people. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. These kind words. Now I'd like to introduce our musician for tonight, George Mann.
Yeah.
But thank you, Phil. I was last here 4 years ago, right? We haven't been able to do this for the last 3 years because of the COVID epidemic. And during that time, of course, I lost most of my work as a musician. And looking at these panels here and seeing the healthcare workers memorialized, I couldn't help but think that I work at 3 of those homes. I sing at Corning and Elcor and Bethany Manor. And so many healthcare workers were lost in the first year of the crisis, of the COVID crisis, right? So I wrote this song, which I like to sing for those who've lost somebody, whether it be on the job or through the last few years of sickness and illness, called "Let the Healing Begin." I've been sitting here for far too long, staring out at emptiness, thinking about everything that's gone. I keep coming back to things they never told us then. We would see that hatred rise again. Now we're standing here in the near ruins of Armageddon. Oh, let the healing begin. Sing this for the grieving mother, lovers who have lost their best friends, the endless line of people dying, and the workers whom it never ends. I keep coming back to things they never told us then. Some of us won't make it to the end. Now we're standing here in the near ruins of Armageddon. Oh, let the healing begin. Let the healing begin. What? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Okay. Sorry, everyone. I'd just like to have a couple speakers. Oh, check.
Oh, sorry. Hang on.
Oh, no, you're fine, George. Go ahead. Yep. Sorry to cut George a little bit and go back to singing, but I'd just like to have a couple speakers speak. So, would you like to speak first, Leah?
Sure.
Or,
Senator. I'm going to presume everybody knows who I am by now. Thank you so much. Oh.
Say it.
Okay, Senator Leah Webb. And so I wanted to first thank all of the organizers for today's program. Thank you so much, Phil, Frank, Wendy, everyone that's Brendan, everyone that's playing a role in not only today's program, but the work you do every day to ensure that our workers are able to work not only for fair wages that they deserve. We all agree on that, right? We all agree on that. Also that they have the ability to work in safe conditions. And that's not just for this moment in time, that's for future generations. And so one of the reasons why, we're able to enjoy the many luxuries we have, such as making sure that we are paid when we go overtime and all of the many benefits that come are due to labor, right? Make no mistake about it. We know for a fact, absolutely. We know for a fact that if labor unions didn't exist, right, that many of the benefits that come with being in the workplace would not be in existence. And so although New York is considered a pro-labor state, we know we still have more steps that we need to take to really live up to that reputation. Do y'all agree?
Yes.
And so we're working on that right now in the state legislature. I know my esteemed colleague from the Assembly will be coming up in a moment here, definitely shares the same sentiment. It's one of the main reasons why in the state budget, we are pushing both in the Assembly and in the Senate to have an 8.5% cost of living increase for all workers. We're fighting to increase the minimum wage. We are big supporters of not just simply a minimum wage. I genuinely believe that we need wages that allow our families to not simply survive, but to thrive. And we can do it, right? We have the resources here in New York and this country that really can make that a reality. We just have to have the political will that couples with the policy to make that happen. And that's one of the many things that we're fighting for. And so I am honored to be in this fight alongside all of you in the labor movement. I also come from a labor family myself. Also, forever, as I've been told, UUP labor member. So, again, we have a lot that we're working on in the state legislature, but none of that can happen. None of the policies and practices that we want to see actualized beyond the budget. We can't do it alone. We need all of you. And so again, I'm just honored that you have invited us to be here. I have the distinct honor and privilege of working with Assembly Member Donna Lupardo, who's been a long time still champion for labor and for all of us here in the region. So please join me in bringing on Assemblywoman Donna Lupardo.
everything for me and for our community. Things that we believe in, the issues that we are promoting, not only legislation, but during in the budget. To have a legislative partner in the majority in the Senate is just fabulous. And you will see the results of this, and I hope everyone gets to see what it means for our area. And as far as the labor movement goes, you've got 2 UUP members. I spent 10 years as a member of the UUP, and I guess we're all UUP for life, similar story. I came from a union family. So look, this is a day. This is an important day, and I want to thank you for taking the time to organize this, for being here, to recognize those people who lost their lives due to a workplace safety issue. And we are committed to making sure that not only are we promoting workplace safety, that workers know what their rights are. Because a lot of times that is, it's secondary in many cases. It's primary when you get a new job. What are my rights and what do I need to do to be safe? And we want to make sure we're also funding prevention and preparedness. I can tell you, the advocacy that has gone on for the state budget, and Senator Webb already mentioned a couple of things, but the organized advocacy this year to see a huge increase in our occupational health clinic network is amazing. I actually think we have a shot this year. I'm on the advisory for Central New York. I know how important this work is. It is crucial, and given COVID, and our experience with a variety of workplace challenges, it's more important than ever that we support our occupational health clinic centers. There are 8 or 10 of them across every region of the state. We're represented by Central New York, that region. So your advocacy, your activism has meant a lot, not just to honor the memory of those people who died, but to make it easier for us to be your advocates. It's much simpler to have, of course, a partner, but also have all of you behind us telling us the stories of why those clinics matter, and also the wage and the other issues that we're working on your behalf. So thank you very much. Thank you to the musician for all this incredible for a few minutes. We're looking forward to hearing more of your music. Thank you, everybody.
Well, thank you. Hang on. Well, thank you. I come out of New York City myself. I moved to Ithaca about 12 years ago after 9 years in New York City. And I was a musicians union organizer for local 802, the musicians union. And I'm still a proud member of the AFM Local 1000, which is the traveling performers like I do. I tour Australia and the West Coast and places like that. And we were able to charter a non-geographical local some 30 years ago that people like Pete Seeger and Utah Phillips and Tom Paxton all helped to organize for workers like me who don't work in one jurisdiction, one job, you know, steady. So I'm also a member of the Industrial Workers of the World, the Marvel. And so I wanted to sing you a couple of songs about worker safety for today because those of you who know your labor history know that 100 years ago, the biggest issues were safety on the job, right? It wasn't about wages, though the wages were bad and the benefits were few. It was about accidents on the job that were taking workers' lives by the thousands around the country, right? And so this one song I'm going to sing for you is called "We've Fed You All for 1,000 Years." Its author is anonymous. It was in the Little Red Songbook, the IWW Songbook in 1908, and it was later turned into a song by a wobbly member. It's one of the most radical set of words I think I've ever heard in a labor song, and one that says, look, you know, we've done all the work, so all the bosses and all the people at the top can have an easy life. Called "We Fed You All 1,000 Years." We have fed you all for 1,000 years, and hell us still unfed. There's never a dollar of all your wealth that marks the workers dead. We have yielded our best to give you rest and lie on crimson wool, but it could be the price paid it in full. Was never a mind blown skyward now. We're buried alive for you. There's never a ship wreck ships forward now, but we are its ghastly crew. Go wrecking our dead by the forges red, and the factories where we spin. Where blood be the price of cursed wealth, for God we have paid it in. Did our best to give you rest, and you lie on crimson wool. But if blood be the price of all your wealth, to God we have paid it in full. We have fed you all for 1,000 years, but that was our food, you know. From the days when you chained us in your fields to the strike a week ago. You're taking our lives and our babies and wives. We're told it's your legal share. But if blood be the price of your lawful wealth, for God we have bought it fair. If blood be the price of your lawful wealth, for God we have bought it fair. Well, thank you. Now, I kept busy during the 3 years of the coronavirus. I was telling some folks earlier, you know, I was touring Australia every year for 10 years in a row, and that all got shut down for 2 years. But I was able to go last year for a month, and I'll be going back in October this year to sing for labor and folk festivals and unions over in Australia. This is a song I wanted to sing for you today, though, because it's in the labor folk world, which is a very small world of labor folk artists. This is considered probably one of the best, certainly one of the best songs about worker safety. Written by a man named Harry Stamper, called We Just Come to Work Here, We Don't Come to Die. And if you've never heard this, I urge you to look for many recordings. Ann Feeney recorded it. I haven't ever recorded it, but it's a powerful song. Now, Harry, I knew Harry. He was a longshoreman out in Tacoma area, and in Coos Bay, actually, Oregon. And one day the supervisor told me to go down and get some logs that were out of the ship, unstuck in a certain way that looked a little dangerous to Harry. And he said, I'm not going down there. He says, you go down there, And they fired him on the spot, but Harry knew he had a union. So they called the arbitrator. And Harry said, I waited for the arbitrator at the bar with a couple of my buddies, and 3 hours later, I got my job back. Yeah, and he wrote this song during those 3 hours. Because he said, the arbitrator took one look at it and said, no, there's no way anybody's going down there alone, So he wrote this song called We Just Come to Work Here, We Don't Come to Die. I've been working here for 15 years and I've seen some changes come. Seen some poets called Californians, and I've seen some poets called bums. And I've seen people working for safety. There must be a reason why. Maybe we just come to work here. We don't come to die. I would like to end up with all of my fingers. I don't want my brain to get numb. I'd like to have my ears when society hears and retire in years. I'd like to hear the applause come. I'd like to hear my grandkids smiling. Remember to pick them up when they cry. That's why I just come to work here. I don't come to die. Cause if you're always level on the floor where you work, and your telephone is OSHA approved, go on and tell me how much you're spending on safety. Pardon me if I'm not moved. Cause ever since 1970, the law has been on our side. That's why we just come to work here. We don't come to die. Now you be the pitcher and I'll be the batter. You know that's just the old ball game. But when the lines start dropping and the toes are popping, the situation's not the same. Now, I'm not saying that you don't care, I'm not saying that you don't try. I'm saying we just come to work here, we don't come to die. It's always level on the floor where you work, and your telephone is OSHA approved. Oh, wanna tell me how much you're spending on safety? Pardon me if I'm not moved. Cause ever since 1917, the law has been on our side. That's why we just come to work here, we don't come to die. Now you and I know that the things that are cold could be fixed with relative ease, but we never did get anywhere by asking you on our knees. Now we're looking you straight in the eye, shoulder to shoulder, side by side, saying we just come to work here, we don't come to die. And if it's always level on the floor where you're working, and your telephone is OSHA approved, oh, tell me how much you're spending on safety. Pardon me if I'm not moved. It's ever since 1917, the law has been on our side, and that's why we just come to work here, we don't come to die. We just come to work here, we don't come to die. Harry Stanley, thank you. Thank you, I'll be back for a few more songs later, but back to Phil, I guess, right? Back to Phil?
Yep, back to me, just for a hot second.
Phil, you better have a good song.
He came here to die.
So next on the agenda, I'd like to introduce everyone to Jeff Prebish. He works with OSHA out of Syracuse. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for inviting me here this afternoon. And, I'll apologize to Wendy because she's heard this before, but I love coming to these events from the standpoint of not memorializing people who've been hurt, but seeing all the people who are pulling on the rope. Sometimes I forget in my job that there are people out there that are trying, like I see the worst. I see it when people get hurt, when people get injured, when people die, but I forget that there are people that are helping us do what we need to do. So, obviously our mission is to enforce laws, but laws are the bare minimum. Laws are the minimum that they got to do. I've got one kid in college and a couple grandkids in elementary school. If they come home with D's, they'll graduate because they meet the law required to pass school. But D's are horrible. Like, I'm not happy. I'm not giving them $20 for a good report card if they get D's. And that's what OSHA is. So I want people to do more. Like it baffles me how just people's internal ethics and morals don't want people to be sick. Like, how can anybody think it's okay to die? Like, we've had just this week, 2 people died in work-related accidents, and that's not, we're not here for that today. It'll be memorialized next year. But one of them was 59, one of them was 19. The 19-year-old's just starting out. I've got a child about that age. I can't imagine the pain that I would feel if my 19-year-old never came home again. And I can't imagine 59-year-olds getting ready to retire with 4 grandchildren that are under 3 years old. He's never going to know. For what? For, to pound another nail or to dig another hole or it doesn't matter. Nothing that any of us do in our jobs is more important than getting home to our families. Yeah. We work to take care of them, not to abandon them. That's why you work. Like I love my job, but if I won the lottery, I'm not doing it tomorrow. I'm taking care of my family. And I think everyone else, that's why you work, to take care of them. It shouldn't be you go to work and never come home again. Or even if you come home missing a finger, or a bad back, or a bad neck, like you want to go fishing. On the way down here, I came down 81, I saw people at the lakes in Tully fishing. Like, that's a great Saturday. Like, not going to a hospital or, you know, going to a nursing home to have to sit with a relative who got hurt. That's not what this is about, and it shouldn't be. And it's amazing that people want to do it. So I want to thank all of you for the stuff you do, because you're pulling on the rope, which is tremendous, because I can't do it alone. None of us can do it alone, but the fact that there's so many people that care, it only makes that things are going to be better. So thank you very much for what you do. We will continue to try to support you. We will continue to do what we can do, but thank you. Thank each and every one of you. And thank you for having me today.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to just have the speaker, City Councilwoman Angela Riley first. Would like to speak.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
There's a trouble table in the room. I'm watching. Well, first, I'd like to say thank you again for inviting us to speak. Many times people forget the impact and the value of collective forces, even at the city level. And I'm just appreciative not only for your support in becoming the city council representative, but we lean on many in this room as we've looked at the contracts and some of the not so positive things that have happened in the city. So we're going to continue to lean on you because it ties directly into not only workforce safety, but the ability to maintain and extend union covered jobs. And that's critical. And if you know, if you listened, my mic keeps falling, we have others that are amongst our team that don't believe in the value of the support that is provided within a union covered workforce. And that's a problem. And we can't continue that way. So I just wanted to share that, and thank you again for what you've done with us thus far. But today we're gathering, as many have you already mentioned, to remember and honor those who have been killed or injured in the workplace. And this solemn occasion serves as a reminder, as everyone has shared, on the importance of workplace safety and the devastating impact that accidents and injuries have on individuals, families, and communities, particularly those of underrepresented or minoritized communities. Workplace safety is of utmost importance because, again, it makes sure that not only are the families represented, but the environments themselves continue to thrive. What was important to me as I prepared for this statement, although we have all worked diligently to make sure our voices and our employees are covered and represented, in New York alone, in 2019, there were over 160,000 non-fatal workplace injuries and illnesses reported. Think about how many went unreported. And if we don't advocate, if we don't legislate, if we don't support those that are in these jobs, many more people will be impacted. And we will be, unfortunately, remembering many, many more. Again, these numbers are not just statistics, but these represent families that we know, families that we've grown to love, and our neighbors that, again, overwhelmingly impact the vitality of great cities like Binghamton. Not to mention the emotional pain and trauma suffered by those that have been impacted. Again, we can't forget the names, faces, and the stories, and we are here to remember them. And I think a remembrance is coming up after my colleague. So I'm excited about, again, not only being here with you, but continuing to do our due diligence from the city's perspective to ensure that not only are we prioritizing the needs of the new contracts, but when we see that they are not hiring local unions, you will see a fight. You will hear us making noise. Unfortunately, we're all by workshops. You will hear us. You will see us out there rioting, picketing, as we did just recently. And unfortunately, for those that don't know, we did lose that battle. But that ties into, again, where there's safety in numbers. And when they understand the value of safe workplaces, union workforces, then we can ensure good wages. We can ensure protection. We can ensure safety. We can ensure training. And those things can be prioritized. So again, I'll be brief because that table is still not doing what they need to do. As we remember those.
We're gonna fight. We're gonna fight.
Do you hear that? We're
You've
supposed to
insulted me
be.
twice and called me out in public twice.
I didn't call anybody.
You're looking right.
As we remember and honor those who have been killed or injured on the job, let us pledge. Let us pledge to do more. And we'll continue to pray. Let us strive for a world where workplace safety is not just a legal requirement, but a moral obligation. It is about ensuring that every worker returns home every night to their loved ones safe and sound. And remember that it is all of our responsibilities, whether they are on our side or not, to ensure that every workplace is safe and every worker is protected. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Angela. Viva, would you like to speak? Viva Friedman, she's a city councilwoman in the city of Bennington.
Thank you.
I should have gone right after Donna. We're the same height. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here today to this important event. My name is Aviva Friedman, and I'm the City Council representative for District 4, which encompasses downtown and the north side of Binghamton. I owe my election success in part to the local labor unions who not only endorsed me, but were instrumental in putting a face to my campaign as they canvassed and made connections on the front porches of my future constituents. I truly could not have done it without you, so thank you for that. As my colleague, Councilwoman Angela Riley, alluded to, in our tenure on City Council, there have been multiple attempts to undermine union workers and privatize jobs. Unfortunately, despite our best efforts, some of these attempts have been successful. It is disheartening to see all of the work of labor organizations unravel with a few yes votes. We know that unregulated, for-profit, private companies do not have their workers' best interests in mind because that would be in opposition to their bottom line. It takes an incredible force of organized workers to advocate for what we know is right: dignified, safe working conditions and quality wages. We have unions to thank for workplace standards today that many of us take for granted, like an 8-hour workday, weekends, and safety precautions, without which workers were dying by the thousands. Frederick Douglass once said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will." That demand comes from unions. It comes from organized labor, and it comes from workers wielding their power, because collectively, workers form the backbone of this country. Even locally, we have seen the importance and power of advocacy and community organizing when it comes to protecting quality jobs and dignified working conditions. Sewage treatment plants, it is sometimes an uphill battle, though, and we know that we don't always win, but that certainly has not stopped the ongoing fight for labor justice. Thank you all for continuing to fight the good fight. We cannot do it without you.
Now I'd like to do the segment of our event that we talk about the workers that have passed away in our area throughout the last year. And just like to say their name and a moment of silence for each person. Judith Hughes, Horseheads, New York. Ron Byron, Bath, New York. Margaret Allen, Elmira, New York. Garrett Blackwell, Endicott, New York. Jose Salesino Alvarado, farm worker, husband, father. Pedro Joy, farm worker, husband, father. Ariello Galindo, farm worker, husband, father, brother. Jack Seeley Jr., truck driver, father, grandfather, friend. Stephen Byler, Romulus, New York. James Miller, Bath, New York. Guy Peck, Waverly, New York. Brian Farr, Horseheads, New York. Jordy Carmona Gill, Homer, New York. Thank you. Yeah, I'm good.
Well, I know you all know which side you're on. But this song is one of Labor's greatest songs, written by a woman named Florence Reese in 1931, when her husband and her were involved with the mine workers down in bloody Harlan County. And one night they got word that the thugs were coming to beat up her husband, or maybe do worse, which is what they did in those days to union organizers, so he cleared out of town, because he wanted to keep living. And when the thugs came to her door, Florence tries to stop them, but she told them, he's not here, he heard you were coming, but they broke the door down anyway. Ransacked the house, looked under the beds, made sure he wasn't hiding anywhere. After they trashed the place, basically told Florence, you tell him we'll be back. In her anger, she grabbed a page off the wall calendar, tore it off the wall, and sat there at the kitchen table and wrote the words to this immortal song. And you know your line, which side are you on?
side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? My daddy was a miner, now he's in the air and sun. He'll stick with the Union till every battle's won. Sing with me. Which side are you on? 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 Well, they say in Harlan County there are no neutrals there. You're either with the Union or thought for J.H. Blair. Which side are you on? 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 Oh, workers, can you stand it? Oh, tell me how you can. Will you be a lousy scab or will you take a stand? Which side are you on? 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 Don't scab for the bosses, don't listen to their lies. These poor folks haven't got a chance unless we organize. One more time. Which side are you on? 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 Tell me, which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Well, when I was recording my newest album, and I'm not here to sell CDs, but I did bring a bunch of my music there. If any of you are interested, I can answer any questions after the program finishes. But this one we recorded for the new album. It's a song called They All Sang Bread and Roses by Cy Khan. And if you don't know his work, I encourage you to check him out. Cy Khan, K-A-H-N. He's been writing and singing songs for labor for some 50 years. He's now pushing 80 years old, Cy Khan is. And this beautiful song of his, he wrote many years ago, and about the only recording I could ever find of it was Ronnie Gilbert recorded it from the Weavers. A song called They All Sang Bread and Roses, and one that always brings hope to me when I think about the labor movement. It goes like this. Now don't you think it's crazy, this old world and its ways? Whoever thought the 60s would be all the good old days? Like the Weavers sang to us, wasn't that a time when we raised our hands and voices on the line? And we all sang Bread and Roses, Joe Hill and Union Main. We linked our arms and told each other we are not afraid. Solidarity forever would go rolling through the hall. We shall overcome together, one and all. The more I study history, the more I seem to find that in every generation there were times just like that time when folks like you and me who thought that they were all alone in this honored movement of home. And they all sang Bread and Roses, Joe Hill, Union Main. They linked their arms and told each other we are not afraid. Solidarity forever would go rolling through the hall. We shall overcome together, one and all. And though each generation feels that it might be the last, our presence here is witness to the power of the past. And just
just as we have drawn our strength from those who now are gone. Younger hands will take our work and carry on. And they'll all sing bread and roses, Joe Hill, Union Main. They'll link their arms and tell each other we are not afraid. Solidarity forever will go rolling through the hall. We shall overcome together, one and all. We shall overcome together, one and all.
Thank you. I'd like to do one more for you, and then, I don't know, are we going to open the program up for other speakers, Phil? Is Phil with us?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. Because then we can do Solidarity to close, okay? Solidarity at the end, yeah. But I want to share with you a song from Australia, where I've been touring for 11 years. A song by one of the great Aboriginal singers of Australia who passed away last year. His name was Archie Roach. And Archie Roach was one of the stolen generation of Australia. You may have heard about this policy that they had in the 40s and the 50s where they took thousands of Aboriginal babies and infants and children away from their parents and tried to civilize them, teach them the British ways. Archie was one of them. He was separated from his family at 3 years old, and he didn't find his siblings till he was in his 20s, when by accident he bumped into his sister at a bar where somebody said, "You look like her," and they brought his sister out, and he was reunited with his sister. Now, Archie was one of the great folk singers of Australia. He also knew Captain Jack, right? Or Uncle Jack, who passed away last year. Uncle Jack was in the Crocodile Dundee films, right? Another great Aboriginal actor. They both passed within a month of each other. But they sang this song together. There are recordings of this that you can find on YouTube. I'm sorry about that. Videos of this, of Archie Roach and Uncle Jack singing this song called "We Won't Cry." And it's a powerful song. And if you feel like joining me with your voices, oh, we won't cry, we won't cry. Oh, we will lift our spirits high up to the sky. Powerful song, Archie Roach. Rest in peace and rest in power. If your burden's too heavy, then it's gonna break you. And you might come crashing to the ground. Keep yourself steady. Don't let it take you on down, take you on down. I'm here beside you, don't you forget it. I'm with you walking down this road. Give up what's inside you, you won't regret it. Together we can lighten this load. Here's the chorus now. And oh, we won't cry, we won't cry. And oh, we will lift our spirits high up to the sky. You did the same for me when I was in trouble. I wanted to disappear down that road, but you wouldn't let me. You were so stubborn. You brought me out that dark night. Sky, up to the sky.
up to the sky. Aren't you, Rich?
Thank you, George. Now, the next section of our event is just a little speak out. If anyone wants to come out and speak about, accidents or any, for Workers' Memorial Day, for service, I can start it off. I was going to talk about workplace violence. Some things that I guess that you really don't think about, but it's very prevalent in this country. Workplace violence is a serious growing problem for workers in America. Workplace violence is a leading cause of death on the job. 1 of every 7 workplace deaths results from workplace violence, more than from toxic exposure or fires and explosions. Workplace violence leads to more than 27,000 serious lost time injuries for workers each year. Healthcare and social service workers are at the greatest risk of violence on the job because of the direct contact with patients and clients. In the last 15 years, the rate of serious workplace violence injuries increased by 70% in healthcare and social assistance settings. Workplace violence is foreseeable and preventable. A federal OSHA workplace violence standard is needed to protect healthcare and social service workers from unnecessary injuries and death. Well, we'll just talk about some workplace violence facts. Workplace assaults are a serious problem. In 2020, workplace violence was responsible for more than 390 workplace homicides and more than 27,000 serious lost time injuries for workers. Women are disproportionately affected. Workplace homicide is the second leading case of work-related deaths for women and the 5th for men. 17% of women killed on the job are homicide victims. Women suffer 7 of every 10 serious workplace violence events. Workplace violence injuries are severe and life-altering. Workers miss a median of 10 days from work due to an injury from a work-related assault. While the overall rate of workplace injuries has declined significantly in the past 2 decades, the rate of workplace violence injuries has increased. Workplace violence is a worsening problem. In the last 15 years, the incidence rate of workplace violence events increased 70% in healthcare and social assistance private industry. Workplace violence injuries have been widespread with rates consistently higher than 14 serious injuries per 10,000 workers for the last decade. Since 2010, the workplace violence injury rate in private hospitals and home health services nearly doubled, with the rate in psychiatric and substance abuse hospitals increasing by 114%. So it's quite a big deal. So just everything going on in this world, it's be safe out there every day at work. Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak out at this event? Hello. All right, I hear color. Is that Mike? I hear Mike?
Yeah.
All right, Mike.
So most of you know me, and the ones that don't, my name is Michael Dunnan. I'm a 15-year union member of Labor's Local 785. I was president of this council. Phil does a wonderful job, way better than I ever did as president. Part of me speaking today is, I've been on a job site where I've seen people killed. I was at SUNY Binghamton in 2011 where a hydraulic scaffold broke, and I watched 5 guys fall to their death. I was on the pipeline in 2012 where I watched a young veteran that didn't listen get sucked through a fan and chopped up. So safety on a job site is very important. It doesn't matter if it's just construction, it's all job sites. And when you actually witness something like that, you never forget it. It'll stick with you the rest of your life. That's why as the names get mentioned, nobody will see me sitting down. I kind of got to go off by myself because I got to let the tears flow, because that's the stuff you don't forget. I mean, I watched a 23-year-old kid's life end from me to mine. And you never forget that. It'll stick with you forever. So part of my time with the unions, some of the most enjoyable times of my life as both a union rep, an organizer, recording secretary for different trade councils, president of the labor council, and president of my own local. Well, I decided, you know, after that time had come and gone, I was going to do something different. So now I'm running for city council of District 7, and I'm going to make sure, which we happen to be sitting in. I mean, on this very stage, I got my first flag football trophy for running a kid over and having the most flags in the season. So this has been my backyard, and this is my, you know, this is my home. And I'm going to fight for workers' rights, whether I ever get back into being a union activist or if I just do it from the politician side. So I appreciate Phil has kept this going. I appreciate all of you for coming out here today. And these people need to be respected. I mean, nobody should wake up in the morning to go to provide for their family and end up dead. And then now their family does not have that person anymore. Nobody should wake up in the morning to go to work to provide for their family and they end up hurt or maimed. And not all people will speak up. There's a lot of people that wouldn't speak up even if they saw something wrong. But that's why their co-workers should be willing to, and that's where unions come in, because you have guys like Casey, guys like Phil, Frank left, but I mean, you have those people that will speak up on your behalf and fight for you, even if you don't have that ability. I've just been blessed. I'm a big mouth, so I've always had that ability to speak up. So, but I thank everybody for coming, and you know, George, love listening to you. I do want to ask you,
what is the one guy that he said when they put him up in front of the firing squad, he said, just make sure I'm out of Idaho before I'm dead.
Joe Hill. I want to hear a Joe Hill song. That's my one request, George. I want to hear Joe Hill. George will have to give you a little background on Joe Hill, because that's a great story about that guy. All right, thank you, everybody.
Anybody else? Anybody else want to speak? No.
I know. I thought about it for Casey.
Should have done it. He's your future VP.
Okay. I was going to close the program with Solidarity Forever, and we can still close the program with that. But if the guy who hired me 5 years ago asked for a song, I better do it, right?
I appreciate that, George.
Now, Joe Hill, of course, is one of our great labor martyrs. He was executed in the state of Utah in 1915. He was a member of the Industrial Workers of the World and one of the best songwriters, one of the most prolific songwriters in the Industrial Workers of the World. He was framed up on a murder charge, and 30,000 letters poured in from all over the world to the governor of Utah. Even President Woodrow Wilson tried to stop the execution. And because he was a state prisoner, not a federal prisoner, there's nothing they could do. The governor was intent on executing him. And what he did say in his last messages before he was executed, he said, "Don't mourn for me, organize," right? And then he said to Big Bill Haywood in his last telegram, he said, "Please arrange to have my body transported out of the state of Utah because I don't want to be found dead in Utah." And when Joe Hill was cremated, they had a funeral service, 30,000 people in Chicago, the biggest street service funeral ever in the history of Chicago. And he was cremated, and his ashes were put into packets little packets and sent to IWW branches all over the world, except for the ones in Utah. Because he said, I don't want to be found dead in Utah. This song was first made famous by Paul Robeson, right? The great African-American singer, lawyer, educator, football star, right? Who was blacklisted ultimately, and most of his senior years was not able to perform because of his politics. But then Joan Baez sang it at Woodstock and made it famous again, right? I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you and me. Says, I'm a Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, says he. Sing that line. I never died, says he. The last line repeats in the verse. Salt Lake Joe, like God said, I'm standing by my bed. They framed you on a murder charge, says Joe, but I ain't dead. Says Joe, but I ain't dead. Oh, the copper bosses, they killed you, Joe. They shot you, Joe, says I. Takes more than guns to kill a man, says Joe, I didn't die. Says Joe, I didn't die. And standing there, this big ass life, smiling with his eyes, says Joe, but they forgot to kill, went on to organize, went on to organize. Joe Hill ain't dead, he said to me, Joe Hill ain't never died. Well, workers strike and organize, Joe Hill is at their side. Joe Hill is at their side. Oh, from San Diego up to Maine, in every mine and mill, where workers stand up for their rights, it's there. You'll find Joe Hill. It's there, you'll find Joe Hill. Now sing that first verse again, ready? I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you and me. Says I'm a Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, said he. I never died, said he. Any closing words before I do Solidarity Forever? Anything else?
Oh, no.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming out today. Thank you for your dedication to the labor movement, to safety on the job, to memorializing workers who use. I always like to say nobody claps for you all when you do a good job in your union, right? But you deserve it. So for the rank and file and for all the leaders among us, we are all leaders here in our own way, right?
Yes.
So commit yourselves to safety, stay safe, commit yourself to organizing. You know, I mean, as you know, Starbucks has been, you know, the workers have been organizing up in Ithaca, and they closed one of the 3 stores, the one right in front of Cornell University, those SOBs. Amazon is organizing, right? The 4th Trader Joe's just organized, voted for unionization this week. There's one in Ithaca now. We're hoping maybe they'll go union someday too.
Dairy farms too.
Huh?
Dairy farms. First
Dairy farms too, yeah. Well, best wishes. You know, workers. You know, the latest surveys, of course, say more than 70% of workers in this country say they'd like to have a union if they could. It's the hurdles, the troubles you have to go through to get a union in, and then to get a first contract, and it's just so difficult. So, you know, as much as you can say we wish we had an even more progressive government, we are getting things done, and the National Labor Relations Board has been processing elections faster, processing ULPs faster, If only there were punitive damages against those SOBs and the companies who fire workers, right? And someday, right? And someday we may have card check, right? Yeah, someday. Someday. In the meantime, when the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater than anywhere beneath the sun. Yeah, what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the union makes us strong. Sing on. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. Is there aught we hold in common with the greedy parasite who would lash us into serfdom and would crush us with his might? Is there anything left to us but to organize and fight while the union makes us strong? Everybody! Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. They have taken untold millions that they never told to earn. Yet without our brain and muscle, not a single wheel can turn. We can break their haughty power, gain our freedom when we learn that the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. In our hands is placed the power greater than the hoarded gold, greater than the might of armies magnified 1,000-fold. We can bring to birth a new world from the ashes of the old, while the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. For the union makes us strong. Thank you, everybody. Solidarity. Thank you. Get home safe, everybody. Best wishes. Keep fighting the good fight.